Elise? I thought I told you to put all these toys away. You're not listening to me.
It wasn't me who made this mess.
Then who was it? Christian, shut the door, please. You can tell me.
It was a little boy. He lived here a long time ago and he loves playing with our toys. I swear.
I believe you. I do. You know, you've been blessed with a gift. You're special. Some people are afraid of special people. Your daddy, he's one of them. He doesn't understand your gift. You just keep it between us from now on, okay?
Okay.
Welcome back to the Hiding for Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror franchises. I'm Mark,
I'm Tawan.
I'm Maria.
and today we're reviewing Insidious, The Last Key, released in 2018, written by Lee Winnell and directed by Adam Robitel. Maria, can you give the people the plot summary?
Parapsychologist Elise Rayner receives a disturbing phone call from a man who claims that his house is haunted. Even more disturbing is the address: 413 Apple Tree Lane in Five Keys, New Mexico, the home where Elise grew up as a child. Accompanied by her two investigative partners, Rayner travels to Five Keys to confront and destroy her greatest fear, the demon that she accidentally set free years earlier.
Okay, The Last Key. The Last Key is. I know I've cashed the previous three movies, but I had an issue with all the movies after the first one, and it's that it seems like they realized too late that Elise was the star of the show, and they had to backtrack to give us more of Elise. And it's like we're kind of being punished and being force fed all these prequels because they killed her off without knowing that she would be a hit. And like, I'm sorry, but like you left part two on a cliffhanger, and we've been following Elise in these prequels, and we know this bitch gonna die. And like, I don't care about her and her family name. This movie was confusing, and they pretty much blamed, like, they pretty much said everything that happened in the first two movies, well, all the last two movies was Elisa's fault. Because this bitch was around opening up all the doors, letting all the ghosts and demons and shit out. Like, I was so confused with this whole movie, and I don't know how I feel about it. Maybe I'll know by the end of this. But what about you, Maria? What are your thoughts on The Last Key?
I definitely feel the same way. It was definitely not the best movie. I see that they were trying to go back to like the beginning, but that just did not hit the way they thought it did. On top of that, it feels kind of like two different movies. I don't know. This movie just feels so like, well, first of all, it's cheesy. The dialogue is so cheesy. It's really hard to like get over it. I feel like whatever direction was going on with this movie was just not it. Um, I see that like, and I also feel like it's kind of a lot like the third movie. I feel like they were trying to take a lot from that movie. You know, like the scene where like, this ring, this key guy kind of looks a lot like the old man from the third movie. The scene where like those girls are chained and they're like walking on all fours is basically what he was trying to do to Quinn in the third movie. Um, what else? When like the mom throws the guy or whatever. I think that's also like an iconic scene from one of the movies when Elise does the same thing. So I feel like the only um the only like original thing they had going on was the whole thing where like this demon was trying to make is making, you know, the people who live there into like evil people, which I feel like if they would have gone more down that route rather than trying to pull it back to like all the other movies, I think this movie wouldn't have been so bad. But yeah, it feels like they just um filmed all these scenes and then just put it together and never really bothered to go back and like edit it. Um yeah, it's not a great movie.
Yeah, because it felt like they were just trying to like they were trying to. They knew they had to circle back to the first one at some point,
Hmm.
and then they also wanted to also like explain how all this stuff happened to Josh and his family, and then that girl from the third movie, and it's like it's just very disjointed and confusing. What about you, Tuan? What are your thoughts overall on the last key?
Yeah, I've been saying for a while that even when we before we first started this one, that I was not a fan of well of this the last key out of the franchise. Like at least for me, it's been my lowest one. Just in general, I did have like a rethinking on the third one after rewatching it, but when I saw this one again, I just remembered that I still didn't like this movie, and I agree with what both of you are saying, and I think the thing for me with this one is like I felt like it was gonna go somewhere and be a bit different, but it really didn't. At a certain point, especially at the beginning, not the beginning, but like once Elise came back and we find out the stuff about her dad and that like the girl that she saw was like real and not like a ghost. I thought like we were gonna try to like do this thing where like blending the lines a bit to like determine like is this like real like ghostly stuff or like actual like physical things happening like a determination type of thing. But once you get past that and then we bring out the creature or the actual villain of the movie, it got really boring, especially with the introduction of like the nieces from her brother. Like they were also boring as well, and one of them got taken out immediately. So like we were already down the character. It just it just didn't really work for me, and I don't. I feel like maybe they could have reworked it to where Elise was just generally younger throughout the movie, and it was one of like her first kind of things going through this, like the ghost hunting, all that type of stuff, and trying to figure something out. But instead, I feel like Maria mentioned, it feels like a mashup of different things, and they just threw it at the wall, and they didn't even decide it was stick. They just like picked it all up together and threw it into one movie.
Because when it opens as like, and you see like at least as a kid and her little brother, if that was the whole movie, all of that, and then we learned and we could have got all the information the movie wanted to give us if it focused on Elise as a kid. It would have gave us the same information without all the disjointed and weird scenes and it just I don't know. It felt like it was overly ambitious and half-assed all at the same time. But what are some scenes that stood out to you guys? Good, bad, or indifferent? I will say there weren't any like really good standout scenes for me, but I will say the scenes that kind of just like made me want to like be done with the movie was Elise's journey through the further when she's like when you see her walking past the man who couldn't breathe when you realize that she's going around opening doors, and then you see Dalton when he falls off the ladder, and then she just like walks away and leaves the door open, and it's like, oh shit. So the lipstick face demon,
It's like, bitch, this your fault.
yes, and I was like, what? That made me so. I'm like, because you left this door open. So basically, you caused your own death because if you didn't leave the door open, you wouldn't have had gone to like have to deal with the fucking woman in black again. Like you caused all of this to happen, and it's just like, and all the scenes with her and her brother reuniting, like the family stuff in these movies don't hit for me. The only time they did really was in part three, like the mom, the dad and the sister and the brother. I was able to connect with that somehow, but like the family from the first two movies, and then her and her brother is just like, why was this? Why were those? Why was that there? Again, it could have just been like a whole prequel movie, and then her brother died, and that's why she really just like leaned into her ghost whispering. I don't know. It just those scenes took me out. But what about you, Tuan? What are some scenes that stood out? Good, bad, or indifferent?
So one thing that I did like once we got the realization of it is when Elise was younger, like as I mentioned earlier, and then you think that she was seeing a ghost or a spirit, but it was actually a real person, and her dad was like gaslighting the fuck out of her that she was not seeing something, and it was just really crazy. Like when like watch a movie and like thinking back and like damn, like she she could have helped, but like obviously she didn't know that that was a real person, and nobody like reaches out to like touch the spirits or anything like that, especially like when you think it's something um that's not like actually there in that type of way. So it was just crazy that um that happened, and it definitely was like it was a little shock factor to that one. Also, when they were, I believe it was when she was going through the house with Specs and Tucker, and they were looking through the camera, and you just see like that person just standing off to the side, but at least what was it like reaching out, but was not like touching her. Like that was also like a pretty decent scene. One scene that I did not like, because I think I mentioned this in the third one was towards the end where they're fighting the villain and someone comes out to help or save. This time it was Elise's mom and her dad, and they do that Insidious thing where it's like that one like saving grace like move, and they just the entity is just gone at that point. And yeah, I don't I don't like that. Feel like that's where the Conjuring has them beat a bit, where when they like defeat the demon entity or whatever. The Conjuring does that better, in my opinion.
What about you? What about you, Maria? Any scenes that stood out? Good, bad, or indifferent?
Um, I mean, I do like the scene. I think it's the scene right before the one that Tuan was just talking about, where she sees that girl, but it's like where you see the feet because Elise doesn't see the feet, and
Mm,
and then I think they only catch it until like afterwards. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, I think some of the jump scares were good, but I do agree. I feel like the beginning scene was a little like unnecessary if they were gonna keep bringing that back. Um, I feel like, yeah, and then, yeah, I think when I first saw this and you realize that it wasn't that those were like real people was definitely like it was, yeah, it's definitely something you just weren't expecting because you're like because you're just like whoa, like no way are these like like actual girls. Um, and honestly, like when you really like think, and yeah, I didn't like also did not like those scenes where she's like opening red doors and leaves them open because yeah, because it's like technically, yeah, it is technically saying that. So this is all Elise's fault. So like if Elise wasn't going around doing all these things, then like it's her fault. I don't know. I don't know. Like her death was her own fault. What happened to Dalton was her fault. Um, yeah, the guy, I don't know. I just thought it was just all like I don't know. I guess just like the whole red door thing to for them to bring it up like that in the fourth movie was kind of dumb. Um, I feel like it makes everything make less sense. Um, I think, and yeah, I think again, definitely like none of the family scenes really hit. They were all just kind of, I don't know. It was just a really cheesy movie, and the fact that they were also trying to give like Specs and Tucker some like little romance on the side was just kind of like unnecessary. I don't know. It's like they're trying to create all these little stories on the side, but like not well, I guess if that makes any sense. Um, I don't know. It's just this was just not the best movie.
Yeah, there was like a bunch of unnecessary stuff going on. It just felt, I don't know, like the whole, yeah, the thing is, I I'm gonna go into next. No, I was gonna save it for when we talk about the characters, but like now that I'm thinking about it, this bitch is making. She made a career, a profitable career, out of fixing the shit that she fucked up. She let all these demons and shit free. Now they out there hunting people, and she getting paid to go save them from a demon she let free. What kind of shit is that? Like that just hit me. That just hit me when Maria was like, "Oh yeah, she was opening all the red doors," and I'm like, "That bitch opened all the red doors, let all these demons and spirits out, and now she's charging people to help them rid the spirits. Ain't that some shit?" Like always, there weren't really that many kills or deaths in this movie, but there were a bunch of jump scares. So, Maria, what are some jump scares that stood out to you?
I guess like the jump scare where like she's looking at all those suitcases that have all those bones in it, which by the way, why the hell wouldn't she pull them out? Like, why are you gonna sit there and look through all these suitcases? Like, for what? Like, there's people in there. Like, get out. I don't know. Um, and so, I mean, but that scene, I don't know. I don't like how they had, like, teased us by, like, putting on, like, a little scary music and then being like, oh, something's gonna pop up, and then nothing pops up twice. They do that shit twice. And then they finally have something pop up out of the suitcase. But I think by then I was already like over that scene because it's like whatever. Like it popped up, like it made it seem like it was gonna pop up. So it wasn't even scary. But it was stupid. Um, the scene where, well, honestly, yeah, like the scene with the feet. That scene got me because I was like, no way. The scene where like the sister, which by the way, I feel so bad for the sister. Like that girl barely had any lines, but they beat the shit out of her. But anyway, so yeah, there's that. Well, yeah, well, with her, when she was like in the basement, and because like she hears her father calling for her, and then obviously he's not down there, and then you see like the keys move, and she's like, she goes towards it, and then it's like not the keys, it's that thing. That scene was scary. I thought that scene was because I was not. I mean, because by then I had already forgotten about the whole keys guy demon. Um, and when he just popped up, and then he like gets off the bed. Um, but to be honest, I don't know. Like his like design, just reminded me so much of the old guy. Like it reminded me so much of the villain from the last movie that it just I don't know. They just like that, like the whole. having girls in the basement and them being real was actually a better concept than what they did in the second half of that movie. Um, because everything just felt like it was done already. Like they did this already. Um,
That's how I felt about it too.
yeah, like and it was just not. It just didn't feel. I don't know, original. It didn't feel like I don't know. I don't like this movie. But I think that's it for the jump scares.
What about you, Tuan? Any jump scares that stood out to you?
I would say not. There weren't really. I don't think any that like stood out to me. I will say like the one like Maria mentioned with like the feet, the person like standing on that like counter or whatever, and you just saw like the feet there, like and the legs. I thought, that was a pretty decent one, but compared to the other ones, they weren't as effective in this one, and it really shows that it's lacking like James Wan within this one a lot. That it wasn't that effective. Like Maria mentioned, like the two where they build up the music and there's nothing there. Like I mentioned in the first one when we reviewed it, that like that's something that I like that James Wan doesn't do. Like if he's building to like a jump scare or something like that, it's gonna be something there, and like you're gonna be freaked the fuck out. And I think that's why I like how he portrays how he portrays it in his movies. But yeah, they just weren't that effective in here.
Yeah, the scares weren't given, and for a movie that doesn't have much or any kills, like you need your jump scares to be on point to fully sell it, and it just they weren't doing it. They weren't doing it for me. But let's talk about the characters, and let's once again start with Tucker and Specs. Tawan, what are your thoughts on Tucker and Specs?
Hey man, Tucker and Specs, they the real ones. Like they I don't have any problems with their characters. I feel like in out of all of the movies, like they've been the ones that I've had the least problems with because they play their roles right. um, they're there for a little bit of comedic relief, but when you need them to like go in action and do what needs to be done to help the plot, they do what they need to do. I think it was Specs who, when the guy was going crazy, like kind of going crazy on them, when we found out that he was when he was being overtaken by the key demon, that um he tried to like run away, or he was like trying to attack them, and he pushed the bookcase on him. Like that's real. We need more of them. um but I would say besides that though, they were seen a little less at times, um also, but I feel like we get the right amount of them that when they're in the movie.
Yeah, I always love Tucker and Specs. They're definitely what keeps you like interested. They're the recurring characters that like bring it out together. But Maria, what do you think about Gerald and Audrey Rayner, Elise's parents?
Whoever actor that is that plays her dad, I've seen him in like a couple other movies, and I think he is so hot. Like I just want to point that out. Um, but I mean, the mom obviously, she's doing her best. I think she was definitely like a positive influence on Elise. Though again, I feel like it is kind of the same theme from the last movie where, Quinn's mom came to save them, and this time it's Elise's mom. It's basically the same thing. I don't know. I thought it was kind of like, because you know how, like towards like that, the end, you kind of start to realize that, yeah, it's this key demon thing that's like making, people do horrible stuff. But it's also like, Elise released that demon on accident when her father locked her in the basement, you know? Like her father still hit her for being the way she was. Um, and I just feel like it's a little, because, for them to say, like, oh, well, he was a monster because of the demon, it's like, no, he was kind of like that before. Like, yeah, he was afraid of her powers or whatever, but like, he would still hit her, he would lock her in the basement. Like, all that stuff happened after. Um, so, I mean, I get what they were trying to do, but I also feel like they didn't realize that. Which I can see why his punishment and whatever hell he was in. Which I'm so sorry, but like the scene where, like, her dad presses his hands up against the wall, so like, I guess I mean, okay, I don't know what happens when he does that, but it seems like the demon like hits him the way he would hit Elise, and like this scene where Elise is watching this and the demon gives her the cane. That scene was just so funny because like the demon is the way it's standing, because he kind of looks like a person, obviously, because Insidious doesn't really do well with the way they dress up their demons. But he looks like a guy looking at Elise, giving her this cane, and his face just looks like, "Do you want to do this? Like, here you go." And I don't know. I thought it was funny. Um, and this scene just wasn't as scary as I thought it was gonna be. Um, but I guess that was like her dad's punishment for abusing Elise. Um, but it was also like, I don't know, her dad was always just kind of like that. So I don't know. I feel like it was a weird plot. That was kind of like a weird little thing they had going on, and I don't know. It didn't hit for me because it was like, yeah, I mean, the demon made her dad probably more violent and like imprison girls, but the demon didn't make her dad abuse her. That man was already a monster. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think her dad was hot. Um, but I feel like he shouldn't have been forgiven so easily. And just the fact that right away she was like, you made my dad this way. Like, sure, yeah, maybe he made him a little worse, but he was kind of already a dick. I don't know. Bless the mom, I guess. Though I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I love that the mom really tried to understand Elise, and I feel like the mom herself probably had powers too, but just never spoke about it with the father, which is also kind of like, I don't know. I feel like if you're gonna marry well, I guess it was kind of like way back when, but it's like, I don't know, if you're gonna marry someone, isn't that something they would know? Well, who knows? I don't know. But point is that her mom was great and her dad was awful, even without the whole demon controlling him.
I agree with you. Josh Stewart has always been attractive. Like I've loved him since Criminal Minds. Like he could definitely get
Definitely.
Should watch The
I've loved him
Collector
since Criminal
because he's in
Minds.
there too.
Yes, that's the only reason I watched those movies because because he was in it.
I'm dead.
Tuan, what are your thoughts on Imogen?
Imogen was like, what do they call it? Like, say, like in the MacGuffin. She was the MacGuffin in the movie because without her, there wouldn't have been no getting the rest of them back because she was, just there and also had the same abilities because she was Elise's niece. And without her, that was like I feel like that was like the only way they could introduce someone to be able to also go in further and bring them back. So she was really just like there for plot purposes because I mean outside of that she didn't really do anything else. She just helped get Elise and her sister back, and we didn't learn much about her, and even less about her sister.
Maria, what are your thoughts on Melissa?
Look, I'll from back piggybacking off of what Dewan said. we just learned that poor Melissa can take a hit. Like that poor girl she had like one scene, and then that demon beat the shit out of her, and then continued to beat the shit out of her in the future, in the further, and then like for I feel like for no reason, Jesus Christ, he like gut her while he just like slapped the other sister, and I was like, what? Like poor Melissa. Melissa did nothing wrong. Like Melissa just walked into that diner with a smile and then got her ass kicked for looking for her father. I don't know. Poor Melissa. That's all I gotta say. Like, I mean, to be honest, I doubt that girl even had powers. She was literally just like she was just living her life, having a normal day with her family. Like, she did not deserve any of those things that happened to her. I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. It's just like she literally had no other important role in the movie besides like getting kidnapped and beaten up by the monster or the demon or whatever, and that was it. Like that was literally it. So I feel bad for her. Poor girl. Um, I mean, yeah, that's all I gotta say about Melissa.
Well, Maria, what are your thoughts on Detective Whitfield?
I mean, honestly, the whole dialogue was just super cheesy. Like even that dialogue was super cheesy. It was everything. I don't know who wrote the script,
Lee Winnell.
but it was just so basic. It was so basic. It was so like it was just not it for me. And yes, and that's kind of how I felt the same way with like the script for the cop for the detective because I feel like it was very like cheesy. But to be honest though, that scene where she scares him was kind of funny because like she screams and he gets scared too. And she's just like, "Oh, I see things." And he's just like, okay, you could go." Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really have any strong opinions about him. On like, I think this is only my second or third time watching this movie, and I never even got his name.
Come on, what are your thoughts on Christian, Elisa's brother?
I definitely felt for his character and why he was, upset with Elise. Like, obviously, she not she really didn't have like a choice like with the abuse that she was facing because of the dad, and at that time probably didn't cross her mind to think about taking her brother with her. But he definitely had a reason to be mad because she left and never came back for him. Which especially she once she eventually made it on her own, and you would have thought it would have been like a thing where she could have checked up on him, tried to um, go back to get him from like the dad, stuff like that. So he definitely had a reason to like be upset with her for what happened. But also, if that whistle was the main reason that he wanted to go back to that house, like why couldn't he go do that so long ago? Like,
Right? That part killed me. I was like, what was stopping you?
exactly, especially because he still lived there. Like your daughters are here. That mean you never left. You never left. So
I I thought he had lost it.
if he did, and I'm like thinking it wrong, then I'm mistaken. But if he didn't, and it was like that imperative, because I understand it was a gift from the mom that he wanted it back, and it was just still at the house. Like he had ample opportunity to go and get that, especially because nobody else had lived in it since um, that man Ted was living there.
Oh, true. He definitely. I feel like he could have bought the house himself.
That's also true. Which honestly, now that you say that, that would have been good. Hold on, you cooking? Because what if he bought it and the demon took over him and then did the shit with his daughters, and then Elise had to come back and save
Yeah.
them? Well, she technically did, but I mean that would have been kind of better. Now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I see it.
We just rewrote it. Lee Winnell, give us the coin.
And that's what
For
makes me
real.
mad is like this is the same person who wrote the first three. Like
Right.
how can like what happened? Were you so much more focused on giving your character a little love story side plot that you forgot about the rest of the movie?
This
It's like,
honestly does not feel like the first, because, like, I mean, the first movie, the reason why Insidious became, well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why Insidious became so popular was also because of the music, you know? And this movie, it just felt so flat. I don't know. Like it was just like the and again, like I'll say it again. That script was so cheesy. I'm sure if we looked up every line, you'll find those lines in like different movies because they were so cliche
yeah,
and
it
they were
felt
so
so
like
half-assed, and that's what makes
yeah.
me mad because like it's the same writer. You wrote the first three. What happened, bro?
After that, the part about the whistle, like that was pretty much it. Because at that point, like he he besides like him me agreeing with why he was upset with the lease for never coming back. He also, if that was like a big thing for him, which it was, because it was like a thing that the mom gave him, like he could have just went, like you say, either bought the house or I don't know, broke in and got it if it was that imperative.
I mean, I just feel like well, I mean, I guess I do understand him not wanting to be in that same house as the men who
That's
abused him
true.
for all those years. Um, but like well, well, it's kind of hard, you know, because it's like it's the place where he grew up and the place that has most of his mother's memories. But it's also the place where he was abused. But you know, the house is also considered to be haunted. But it's like if you never believe the least, though, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's something we just won't understand unless we're in that position.
Yeah.
But and I guess I mean I'm assuming it's something she was trying to let go after Elise, you know, in his mind basically abandoned him and kind of left him to like her dad,
Well, keep
which I
going.
mean it is kind of sad. Sorry, but because it is kind of sad because the fact that like Elise never bothered to come back for him like all those years and you were like never as an adult. I mean, I think she got I don't know, just never even like as an adult thought like let me look up what my brother's doing. Like that poor kid.
Well, keep going, Maria. What are your thoughts on at least this go around?
I mean, I didn't like Elise in this movie. It just like they gave her. I mean, the first movie is supposed to be like right, like Elise has already used to what she's doing, has already experienced the further, and the second movie she comes in again as the savior. But the third movie was supposed to be somewhat of her like of her growing as a person after losing her husband. That in this movie it just again it feels like they were trying to do the same thing except about like her past, her healing from her traumas. But it was just so weird because it's like they were like teetering between her being a weak, vulnerable Elise who has all these traumas versus the Elise that has all this experience as a psychic. And it didn't mesh well. There were some scenes where she just seemed so like so weak, yeah, so vulnerable. And then scenes where she was, strong and powerful, but but they were like it wasn't consistent. And I don't think they could figure out well, this is what it feels like, but it feels like in the writing they couldn't figure out how to give her any more character development than they already have. Um, Especially because there's the first movie and then there's the sequel and then the third one is like a prequel. So this is this continues after the prequel. So it's like a really weird middle ground that just like, and I mean, like the writing was already shitty to begin with, so it just came off weird, and it came off very like inconsistent, and I don't think they could decide where to take her character. And I'm sorry, like I know that like the whole point of this movie was about Elise and her past and her dad and her trauma, but like this girl was trauma dumping left and right, like like when she was um talking to Specs and to Tucker, and when she first told them, like, I have to go to this house, and then brought up everything that happened in the house, and it was just like I understand why they did that, and it's I guess it's because like Elise technically considers them as family now after the third one, but starting off just watching this movie, it just seemed so like it just seemed so out of nowhere. I don't know. It was just a weird scene to watch, especially because after she told them, they never really talked about it. They were just kind of like, "Well, we'll go with you," and then it cuts to like the next scene, and that was it. And it was like, okay. And then the scene where they're at the house, and now the guy, the one who called, um what was his name again? I forgot his name. But basically, he's there, and I think this is already after she had already done like a walkthrough, and then she just tells him like, yeah, like my father used to beat me in this house, and I think that's exactly the way she said it, and it was like, okay, um, I don't know, it was just I feel like it was a weird scene, especially because again, like Specs and Tucker and this new dude is there, and she's telling them how her dad used to beat the shit out of her, and like nobody says anything. And the scene just cuts, and it's like okay, like this girl just trauma dumping on everybody, which is fine. I guess it's the whole point of the movie, but it's the fact that nobody says anything. Like they talk about it, and then they're like, anyways, and it's like, then what was the whole point of at least telling these people, this stranger, about her past? If like, I mean, it has to do with her, obviously, but I feel like realistically, it doesn't have to do with anybody else, besides her brother and her nieces. But like, I don't know, it was just so weird. That whole, I don't know, those scenes were just so funny to me. Um, because I don't know, whatever. It was just, I thought it was just a very weird thing to have in the movie. And I just felt like sometimes I was watching different like Elises in the movie because again, like I mentioned, I just feel like they couldn't decide where to take her character because it's this movie is such a weird middle ground um between like the third movie and like going way again back to the first and the second movie. Um, So I didn't like Elise this time. And again, and her lines were so cheesy. Jesus Christ. Like I can't get over it. I don't know. Like she did so well in the other movies. I don't know how she let the writer whoever get away with any of this because this movie was just awful. Like I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's it.
What about you, Twan? What are your thoughts on Elise?
Yeah, didn't feel like Elise was like on her A game this time around. Um, like so actually for Lin Shay, like she was good, but what they gave Elise to work with this time around wasn't as good, and you definitely feel it throughout this movie, like Maria mentioned, and it really does come down to the writing and how it was kind of portrayed this time around. They didn't make her seem like incompetent or anything, but it just didn't make it seem like the Elise that we were kind of used to. And pretty much everyone in this one was at fault because of the writing, which, as you mentioned earlier, Marcus, it's like crazy because Lee Winnell did the other three movies, so I don't know what was going on with this one. Like if it was lack of direction or what they thought they were going to do, but I don't have much to say about her, just that it definitely felt like a step down. But I still like Lin Shay in this role, though.
I do too. I mean, I don't really know anything else that Lynch has done besides like pop up and like cameo appearances for other of like for her brother's projects. So like I love her in this. I felt disconnected from Elise in this one when she was like one of the main draws in that first movie. And I feel like with each movie that passes, I enjoy her less and less. And it's like, again, I go back to they didn't know that Elise was like the star character. They didn't know that they had gold with Elise, Tucker, and Specs. And they've been trying their damnedest to like keep giving us that. And it's not working. It's working for Tucker and Specs, but it's not working for Elise. And I just and giving her this family with this backstory, it doesn't do the character any favors. And again, going back to what Maria said, the dialogue is horrible, and that just makes it all worse. But Tawan, what do you think about the lipstick face demon and the kind of like sort of origin story we got about him? Like how they were introduced into the world.
Um, I don't, I don't think I much really thought about that. Um, After like a rewatch, because kind of like we mentioned earlier, not saying like Elise like started the demon, but she definitely left the door open literally for Dalton to get possessed by that demon, which is like Elise has been to the further a lot. So we saw her when she was like in her like either early 20s or whatever, when she was doing stuff with Josh, like trying to help him out when he was a kid. So I feel like she should know that leaving doors open and not closing them in the further leads to other things to happen. So I don't know like what was going through her mind, but it does set it up so that the first one can happen. Like it's not about to rewrite the past or anything. Even though we're technically in the past of this movie, it's not like it's not going to rewrite it. But if this like if that didn't happen, she should have closed that behind her so that nothing would get through.
Maria, what are your thoughts on the key face demon? Well, the key demon, wherever the hell he was called, the key demon.
There are different demons.
I was under the impression that the key demon and the lipstick demon were two different demons. Were they not?
Yeah, the lipstick demon
No,
is the one
I
from the first one. Yeah.
And then the key demon was like the main demon of the movie
Yes.
with the keys.
Yes.
Did you not know that, Maria?
no. I thought it was the same thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I thought I guess the whole key thing was a cool idea if they had elaborated on it a little bit more. Um, but honestly, the design of the demon literally looks the same as, or to me, looks the same as um the mask old man from like the last movie. So I was just kind of like, I guess it wasn't scary. It just seemed like the same thing as it just he just seemed like the same villain as the last movie. So so I guess I was disappointed. I expected a little bit more.
I agree with you on that, and I know people hate when you compare this franchise to Conjuring, but it's not hard to do given that like most of the behind the scenes people and some of the on screen people are in common with The Conjuring. I mean, it has James Wan, it has Patrick Wilson. They're both Blumhouse franchises, and I have to say, this is another thing that Conjuring had them beat on is that at least every villain is distinctively different from each other. Like you can't get them confused, and that's what this movie needs. And going back to Lipstick Face Demon, like this is the third time we've seen him, and we still don't know. This is what the fourth. Because was he in the second movie? No, no, we didn't see a Lipstick Face Demon in the second movie. But like this is the third time we've seen him, and it's like you teasing something, and I'm and I'm afraid that the payoff won't be worth it. Because from the promotional material that we've seen, I'm thinking it's all about like he's the big bad again in the fifth movie, and I'm just afraid that the payoff won't be good because you've been teasing this character for three movies now, and like, I don't know, like I don't know, I wasn't feeling the lipstick face demon, wasn't feeling the key demon. It was like the demons were lacking. Like the dad being a dick was more terrifying than the demons were. What about you, Tawan? What are your thoughts on the key demon?
Yeah, the key demon out of all of them was the most underwhelming one so far. Um, I just feel like the story for the key demon wasn't like strong enough, really. Like all the other ones, like so far, like I like, even though it wasn't like a huge like backstory or whatever for the lipstick face demon, except we got a little bit, but I like that one better just because I like the first one is my favorite. The woman in black, like we had a lot of like backstory for how that came about. Then we get the third one with the old man or the man who couldn't breathe, and like that like backstory for that was good as well. But then we get this one, and it just wasn't as strong as the others, and it wasn't really. It was more so the gimmick of the demon was like the selling point, but not the actual like the why of the demon, I would say. And it didn't really do much. Like all it did was same thing as the other ones. It removed someone from their physical body, held them captive, which was literally the same as number three. So it was no like it was nothing like different to like shake it up.
Well, with that, Tawan, we have come to the end, but not quite the end. Can you please give the people the behind the scenes info and facts?
Yes, I can. So, Insidious: The Last Key was made on a budget of $10 million, and it brought in the box office of 167.9 million. Some critics' reactions: the film currently sits at a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critical consensus reads: Insidious: The Last Key offers franchise star Lynn Shay another welcome opportunity to take the lead, but her efforts aren't enough to rescue this uninspired sequel. The Seattle Times rated the film 2 stars, saying old horror franchises don't die, they unspool tepid, uninspired sequels in perpetuity. And with the fourth chapter, Insidious: The Last Key, this saga is on a familiar path. Lastly, the Hollywood Reporter faulted the film's delivery of the boos or scares as remaining cheap and arbitrary.
Well, not quite sure what that means, but forget about them. What about us? Maria, Tawan, do we cash or pass Insidious, the last key? Maria?
I pass. This is not a great movie. I do have this movie on DVD, but the only reason I have it on DVD is because it came in like a package deal with the other Insidious movies. This movie definitely flopped. I think it generally just doesn't have the best rating, so definitely flopped for me. Um, I have no idea where the hell they. I don't know. I don't know what they did to this movie, or where they were going with it. I think I mentioned in the beginning, like it just feels like they filmed all these scenes and they never like edited them. They never went back to actually watch it and be like, you know what, that doesn't make sense. And then they are like, this scene kind of sucks. That it just feels like they, yeah, it feels rushed. So definitely a pass.
Tawan, do you cash or pass the last key?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna pass on this one. Even before were reviewing, going to review this one, I had mentioned it a number of times that this was like my least favorite out of all of them, and it's still the case. It just was not like up to par with the rest of the movies, and I'm not sure what happened with this one, or you know, why the story was where it was, but I think it could have been. I feel like it could have been a lot better with, either like a different story altogether, or just in general better writing for it as well. So I'm hoping that with the newest one we get a little better. And yeah, I'll pass on Insidious: The Last Key.
For me, it's also gonna be a pass. You know, when we were talking about doing this franchise, you both gave me like different reactions on part three, and I love part three. You know, part three might be my favorite one in the entire franchise. Neither one of you said anything about part four, so I went into this movie knowing that it probably wasn't going to do the best, and I was right. It was just too much, and I will say that because I do all the Instagram photos and stuff, so I kept on seeing things. I had saw photos of like little kid Elise, and I was under the impression that it was gonna be about like Elise as a little kid and Elise as a teenager. It's gonna be like set in like the 50s or 60s. I'm not trying to say that woman is that old, but whatever. And I thought all the scenes I was seeing of like teenagers and young women were all like Elise. So come to my surprise, I'm like, oh wait, these are her nieces. This isn't Elise. This isn't the story I thought I was going to get. And it kind of just all fell apart. And it's a pass. It just, I can't believe that the person who wrote the first three movies wrote this. Like the dialogue was lazy, the interactions was lazy. The director, I don't know what the hell was going on. Like,
And like
what?
if you think about it, like more, but like they introduce the nieces halfway through the movie, and literally in the last 5 minutes, you get that yeah, one of the nieces is kind of like Elise, and all she does is goes in, helps Elise, and the other one gets her fucking ass kicked. I'm so sorry, I cannot get over that.
Literally, the Imogen, she's literally the MacGuffin of the movie. Like, that was her role, to be just to be there, so that we had another person with Elise's abilities.
Yeah, and it just
Yeah.
like, it could have been the movie that I thought I was about to watch is so much better than when I actually watched. So because looking at those photos, I thought that was Elise and her sister, and it was going to explain like she was being haunted as a kid. I mean, as a teenager, this is how her like I thought it was going to be Elise's origin story, and it's not what it was, and I was so disappointed.
You know what? I feel like it would have been so much better if they would have done one about Elise and her husband, especially considering that she was so heartbroken when
And
he
we had just
died.
met him in the movie before.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know what, and I don't know. And did Lee would know, right? The one that's coming out.
I'll repeat that.
I think okay, okay. Lee Winnell did not write the Red Door.
Oh yeah, he did.
He did the story for it, but the screenplay was written by someone else. And this is the first time there's a whole new team behind it. So that could be good, that could be bad. And this is Patrick Wilson's debut as a. It's not his debut, but it's his first time directing an Insidious movie. This is also a new writer to the Insidious franchise. So the new movie is going to have a lot of new. That could be good, that could be bad, but we shall see. And actually, I'm looking now. Actually, the Red Door will be Patrick Wilson's like
Debut.
directing debut. So hopefully it goes well, guys. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good. But you will find out next week when we review Insidious, the Red Door. The Red Door. They was teasing those red doors, and they opened all those red doors in this movie, and now we get to learn about
I just
them.
remembered it comes out
Yay!
next week.
Yeah, so you'll hear our review next week, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this short retrospective. Only what, 4 movies. Now we're going to the fifth, so tune in. Good night. If you like this episode, please be sure to check out Haddonfield Horror's past reviews from big franchises like Halloween, Friday the 13th, and the Chucky franchise, or one-off reviews like Us and Midsommar. You can follow Haddonfield Horrors on Instagram and TikTok, where the host posts updates and mini reviews. Full episodes are available on several podcasting platforms. If you're listening to us on YouTube, don't forget to please like and subscribe. Haddonfield Horror is produced by Mark Smart, Maria Perez, and Tuan Griffin. Edited by Mark Smart. Theme by Lethal Injections. The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?